I've got this simple animation, and I'm going to use it to talk about infinite iterators and how we can create an infinite loop with a for loop rather than the more conventional while loop. Normally we use a while loop for infinite loops, but the topic is infinite iterators and for loop infinite loops. We're also going to look at some fancy slicing here. So let's start straight away. And I'm going to use the turtle module. Don't worry if you've not used the turtle module before. It's fairly straightforward. Those of you who follow what I do know that I love to use the turtle module. It's a great way to showcase so many topics, not just the basic ones. In this case, we're going to be looking at infinite iterators. But it's a way of showcasing them in a visual way, so I like that. Let's create an instance of the turtle object, which is what we need to get started. A bit of setting up. Pan up means it won't draw a line when it moves. Let's also change its shape to circle, although it means a disk really, but it says circle there, so circle it is. And let's also change the size to twice its default size to make it a bit bigger. So this gives me a dot. We'll add color later on, right? I'm going to focus in this video on the iterator part, on the fun core topic first, and then in the second half of the video I'll make it look pretty, etc. So if you're interested in the iterator part, it's the first part we need. Now I want that dot to go to the positions. The positions I had in my video were -200, -100, 0, 100, 200, and then to keep going up and down through those values. So let's create for the time being a list, and I'm going to hard code the values for now. We'll deal with making this neater later on. -200, 100, -100, 0, 100, and 200. And let's start with looping to that list. For position in positions, I would like to take my turtle object, which I've called sprite, and set its y position to position. I'm also going to put in a sleep to slow it down, and so I can import time and time.sleep, let's say 0.3 seconds, just to pause it at every stop. And now we have the dot going in all those 3 steps, but I want it to keep going up and down forever. So this is where the fun is going to start. I would like to, instead of iterating through that list, to iterate through something which keeps going from -200, -100, 0, 100, 200, and then back to 100, 0, -100, -200, and then keeps going up and down and up and down. And to do this, let's go to the REPL to help us figure out what's happening. I'm going to use itertools, which is the one of the modules in the standard library, which gives us tools to deal with iteration, hence the name. And let me copy my list there, so I don't have to type it in again. And let me create a new variable, all positions. And from itertools, I'm going to use cycle. And for the time being, let's see what happens if I use cycle positions. Now, first of all, what comes back from itertools.cycle? It's a cycle object, not very useful there unless we know what it is. This is an iterator, and an iterator is one of those structures that doesn't create all the data in one go. It cannot do so in this case because this is an infinite. There are infinite number of items in this data structure, so it can't have them all in memory, of course. But every time I need to get the next value, it will fetch that value, it will create it, generate it, and give it back to me. One way of fetching the next value is using next. We'll see that using a for loop is another way of doing that. And let's see what the values are. So start with -200, then -100, and then 0, then 100, then 200. Now what's going to happen after 200? We reach the end of the original list, but now I'm cycling through it. So the next value is, we've swung back to the beginning, it's -200. This is not what we want in our animation. But let's try it out. Let me copy that and put it in there. I'll need to, let's move that there for now. Import itertools, where are they? Oops, there you go. And instead of looping through the list positions, I'm now going to loop through this iterator, this cycle object. And you can see that when it reaches the top, like the old-fashioned typewriter swinging back, it sort of swings back all the way to the bottom in this case. We're getting there, but it's not what we want. So let's go back to the console session that I had. And let's try again. Now, when I created the cycle object, I used positions. But I can take two lists and merge them together using the plus. I can add two lists together, and that creates a combined list. And for the time being, let us take the same list, but reverse it. That's the shortcut for one of the shorthands for reversing a list. It's a slice that says go from the beginning to the end in steps of -1. So from the end to the beginning in steps of -1. And let's see what this gives us. First of all, positions, just to make sure we can visualize this, positions : -1 is the list in reverse. And that's the original list. So we can see that they're reversed lists. Let's start going through all positions now. We start from -200. -100, 0, 100, 200. Let's see what's going to happen after 200. We end up with 200 again. So 200 appears twice, and the same is going to happen for -200. The ends of my list appear twice. I do not want that. You can see why that happened, because we've taken the list, made a copy of it, flipped it over, and then put those together. So the beginnings and the ends are going to repeat. But we could, instead of, that's our original list, instead of looping from the end to the beginning, I could start from, now, -1 is the last element of the list, but I do not want to start from that. I want to start from, let me start again, -2. So the item before the last, that's the 100 there. Then I want to slice from that item, I'm going to be slicing backwards, I'll put the -1 as the step at the end, all the way to the beginning of the list, but excluding the first item. A reminder that when you have a slice, the end of the range in a slice is excluded. So this means we will not include the -200. And I want steps of -1. And this slice is 100, 0, -100. So I can now use this in my cycle. So I want to cycle through the list that's created when I take my original list positions and this slice that sort of chops off the end. And let's check that this works. Next, all positions. -200, -100, 0, 100, 200. Now, drum roll, back to 100. So we have not repeated 200 twice. 0, -100, -200. So we're back at the beginning of the list, and now we start going up. So that is the magic line that I need. Let's replace it. And nothing else I need to do. Run. And we have the dot going up and down in all of those steps. It's not repeating the beginning and the end, and it's just going up and down. When will this iteration end? When will this loop end? Never. Well, it will end when I force quit the program by closing the window or force quitting or whatever, whichever way you want to quit. That's part 1. We have, in fact, before I finish part 1, this works for those values, but what if I want to have more flexibility there? Well, I could change this to using range, starting from -200. Now, I want to go to 200, but range again excludes the last value, so I'll need to go to at least one higher in steps of 100. Now, because I'm using the addition of lists here, I need to make sure that this is also a list. So that should give me the same thing, but it means that I have more flexibility if I want more steps there, or I can use range to change these values if I don't want them to be -200, -100, 0, 100, 200. Good. Part 2. Let's make it look a bit prettier. I'm going to go quickly now because I don't want this video to be too long. But feel free to stop here if you don't care about the rest, of course. Let's go for, let's create, not there, let's do it there. Let's create our window, which is, I like to call it window, you can call it whatever you want, which is a screen. And this is so that we can give it a background color, BG color. And let's go for grayscale, let's just keep it simple. There. So that gives me background. Now that shouldn't be black anymore. Let's go for sprite.color light green. There are different colors to the one I had originally. There we go. Are you happy with that? Brilliant. And So that's working. All I need to do is create the scale there. So what shall I do? Let's create another turtle to create the labels. Turtle.turtle object. Let's once again pen up so it doesn't draw lines when it goes wherever. Let's use the same color. Dot color. I should really put a variable here so that I don't repeat myself, but let's be lazy here. Don't do that. define the color you want if it's the same one as a variable. Don't repeat yourself as the mantra. And yeah, that's fine for now. Let's also actually in this case hide the turtle sprite, because I'm going to use this turtle to write this label turtle to write on the screen. So I don't actually want to see the turtle, I just want to write things. And what I can do is I can say for position, why not? I can use the same one. We're only using that in the for loop. Now I want to loop through positions. I only want to do this once because I want to show the labels once, not infinitely number of times. For positions, take my label, the turtle, I now want to set both its x and y, set its position to x is, let's say, 150. So I'm shifting it slightly to the right, and y is position. And then I want to write on screen. So write is one of the methods that the turtle module has that allows me to write on the screen. And I could simply write position, but let's see what the problem is going to be there. They're tiny. They're there, and you see them, but they're tiny. So what I could do is change the font. You can actually pick whatever font you want. Let's go for Courier, or whatever you want, really. Something more exciting if you want. Then the size is next. And if you want, this is optional, you can go for normal, or let's go for bold. And there we go. We have our infinite animation using a for loop. Why? Because we are looping through an iterable, in this case specifically an iterator, which goes on forever. And we've done that by taking a finite list, the list with 5 items in this case, could be any size, and we've converted it into an infinite iterator using itertools.cycle. Therefore, this for loop will never end because it's looping through a structure that's always giving you the next value, and it's never reaching the end. The end of an iteration usually is when the for loop gets a signal to stop. It will never get that signal. Long video, I'll stop there.